what's going on? It's a lazy Sunday. Sunday, August the 21st, 2022, 1:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm taking an opportunity and a pocket of time to jump on and talk to you guys. I have a wedding to go to tonight, and then, of course, next week is Bruce's wedding. Lots going on in between. Like I said to you guys at the top of the month, a lot going on this month. So I'm jumping on anywhere that I possibly can when I have some time. So yeah, it's just, I gotta jump on. Great to see everybody here. If you're watching after the fact or if you're watching live, great to see you guys here. I know a super chat came in. I want to get it before it disappears. I mean, it's not going to disappear completely, but I mean, disappears off the chat room here. Techno dopamine. I think that's how you say that. Sends in $5. Thank you very much. Says, hey Dave, can't wait to see your portrayal of Freddie. Thank you very much. Can you start a Kickstarter to make your Halloween concept sequel a reality also, please? First of all, thanks for the Freddie support. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to it. Still, a few months away, but exciting, very exciting. We are closing in to finally get that done and out of the way. And I know Cecil's been really eager to tackle it, of course. And so, yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. And in regards to the Kickstarter for a Halloween concept, no, I'm not going to do that. I hate to break it to all you guys, but for those of you that might not know, but I have really no interest in doing a Halloween fan film in the same way that I did It's Me, Billy. I don't know if it's because I talk about Halloween all the time and I'm inundated with Halloween all the time that, doing something like It's Me, Billy was a nice break. It was a nice departure. And of course it was a largely, not largely, it was untapped sort of section of horror because Black Christmas is one of those cult kind of movies that doesn't get a lot of love at the end of the day. So, but with Halloween, it's just, and Halloween is something that, of course, you never know, but I do know that there have been some Halloween fan films in the past that have raised their production value a little bit and have been shut down. And if we were to do a Halloween fan film, our production value would be 10 times more than the ones that got shut down. Now, not everyone gets shut down, obviously, but not every Halloween fan film looks like a Hollywood movie. And that's what we would want to do, right? That would be the whole point of raising money and, going to those lengths to really put out an amazing product. I mean, we shot on the same camera that they shot some of Halloween Kills on, right? So, we were a much smaller scale, but we were using the same equipment essentially. So now that doesn't mean that your movie's going to look as good. Obviously, talent also has to be behind the lens as well. But the point I'm trying to make is that if we were to do a Halloween fan film, I would want to do it like It's Me, Billy, which is what you want, right? You're like, yeah, that's what I want. The problem is, number one, I don't have the desire to do it. That's first and foremost. I just don't have the desire to do it. And number two, if we were to do that, the production value that we would be putting out would look like, when we put out a trailer, it would literally look like the Halloween Ends teaser that you saw in terms of production value. Right. And I don't think Trancas and Universal are going to put up with that, at least not now. I mean, maybe you wait 5-10 years from now, who knows, but in and around the same time that they're putting out things that are like that, I just don't think it's going to go over well. Trancas and Universal, I don't know which ones sent the cease and desist, but I do know that over the years, certain indie filmmakers that have tried to raise their production value, not everybody, of course, but certain indie filmmakers that have attempted to take things to another level with their Halloween fan films have run into problems. That's not to say that everybody does, but I'm just saying that it is out there. And there's just I just don't believe that we would not run into that problem. So it's just not a headache that I want. It's not a road I want to go down, but that's number two. The first thing is that I just don't have a desire. I would rather start tackling Billy 2, and finish that story, because that's a story that is currently incomplete right now. And we should have some information for you people out there on that very soon. We are just waiting for the month of August to go by because of how busy it is. So expect some interesting, developments coming very soon. So I appreciate the enthusiasm. I really do. Sincerely, I do. But it's just not something that I want to do. If we have the opportunity to complete the Billy story and sort of kind of have our own kind of unofficial Black Christmas trilogy, right? Where you have the original and then you have It's Me, Billy, and, the second part. I want to go off and make original films. I don't want to live in a world of fan films. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I want to continue to hone my skills. And then the next thing I do, if Billy 2 comes to fruition, the next thing I'd like to do is something original. And I know that Bruce feels the same way. And we have a treatment that I've sort of told you guys about. Well, not really about what it's about, but I've told you that we've been working on a treatment, and that's something that we have up our sleeve that we would love to tackle. And that's original. So I appreciate the enthusiasm, but unfortunately it ain't going to happen. And plus I would have to raise probably like $5 million. It's not going to happen on Kickstarter. And I don't think Trancus would like that very much either. Oh, what? A fan film just raised $5 million? I don't think so. Okay. Let me see here. Evil Alex says, on that Carpenter panel, somebody asked what Michael Myers is, and John said he is not a person. He is a force of nature, simply evil, no character, and can't die. So everything you said before here, did you finish that up? Looking for you, Evil Alex. I don't see that you finished that. Evil, I don't see you anywhere, unless you're currently typing right now. Maybe you're currently typing right now to finish off your thought. Yeah, well, John Carpenter has said slightly different variations of that exact thing. He has said he's half human, half supernatural. He's part human, part supernatural. The force of nature thing is very common. What that simply means when John Carpenter says a force of nature, what he's trying to illustrate to the audience is he's trying to let people know that it's not personal. There is no rhyme or reason for why Michael's doing what he's doing. That's why John Carpenter has chosen the words force of nature. So what are forces of nature? Tornado, hurricane, the wind, and as I've said many times, the wind doesn't blow the shingles off your roof because, you owe the wind money. It's not personal. The wind is, it just is. It just is. It just is. It's not personal. It's not like, I don't like Bob, so I'm going to, there is no conscious, objective awareness, intelligence to that sort of, to the wind, right? It just is. And that's why he uses those words to let the audience know there is no motive. There is no reason for doing what he's doing. He just is. He's just evil. When you try to explain it, when you try to intellectualize it, when you try to break it down, you're going to be going around in circles and circles and circles, because it would literally be trying to prove that the wind doesn't like you. It would literally be trying to prove that the tornado that ripped through Kansas had it out for all those people that it killed. That tornado did not like those people, and you have to prove that. You can't. It's just a tornado. It just is. It's the weather. It's just, do you know what I mean? So that's why he chooses those words. And where are you here? Evil Judge said, not a person, a force of nature, simply evil, no character, can't die. Yeah, the can't die thing is more about, you know, I mean, I guess he can't, well, he will live on in some sort of, you know, incarnation in the future. I have no doubt about it. And to be fair, when I say that this will be the last Halloween as we know it, you know, of course it's not going to be the last Halloween movie ever. I'm talking about Halloween 78, you know, Halloween, the last Halloween connected to the 1978 original. Because you can't keep going on, because then Michael is going to be what, you know, 146. You know, he's still flesh and blood, right? He's not literally a supernatural being like Freddie. So I think when John says he can't die, he's talking about, I would assume he's talking about Michael as a symbol. The character of Michael Myers will always be retold in some sort of fashion. You will always have a Michael Myers movie, probably for the next, if it continues to make money, they will continue to make them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it will always be a connected, you know, the continuity will always be connected to the 78 original. No, they'll reboot it, they'll remake it, they'll reimagine it, you know, whatever the case is, right? But you know, force of nature, simply evil, no character. Yeah, he's always talked about that. He's always talked about that. No character just simply means, you know, no personality, blank, pale, emotionless, you know, just instinctual, like a predator. You know, it's all it is. It's all it is. And I think too many times people try to intellectualize that and break it down and figure it out. And you can't, because it's like I said, it's like trying to prove the wind doesn't like you. It's, you know, it's impossible to do so. So there's just no point. Jake Blair sends in $4.99, says, am I the only one who thinks Charles Cyphers, especially his bracket, sounds like he's always trying to do a bad Paul Lind impression? Paul Lind. Who's Paul Lind? Is that how you say the last name? Paul Lind? Oh, for goodness sakes. Hang on a sec. I got to look this up. Paul, why am I drawing a blank? I might know the face, just not the name. Okay. Yes, I do know the face. I'd have to listen to him. I'd have to listen to him. I know the face. I now know who you're talking about. But I'd have to watch, and see if I agree or disagree. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not too sure. But you might be right. I always think that, bracket sounds slimy, you know, not Charles Cyphers in general, but certainly in that first movie, you know, excuse me, Laurie. He just kind of comes across, and he's only 39. I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, he looks like he's rocking 50. I don't know. He's literally only like 9 years older than Nancy Loomis was. Kind of crazy. Mark Warling says, Dave, how do you think they will end the next Halloween film ends, and how do you want them to end it? Your vision, thanks. Well, Mark, like I've said many times, I want there to be a definitive end. If it were up to me, I would kill both Michael and Laurie, and end it very much like I did my sequel concept, in the sense that it's all about, you know, it ends on a philosophical note and leaves the audience pondering the nature of evil and whether or not Michael, like you believe he's dead, you know that he's dead, but there's some sort of, but is he? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I would not end it on a cliffhanger where it clearly communicates to the audience that, yes, we're probably not going to make more, but we could make more. No. I would have a definitive end. So no cheesy 90s or 80s cliffhanger where, like, you know, the eyes suddenly open or he suddenly sits up or bursts out of a window or nothing like that. No, dog shit. Get that out of here. No, there is a definitive end. And I think if you were to I think if Michael were to die, quote unquote, I think the audience would be able to accept it because it's how you do it, right? And it's the meaning and the symbolism that surrounds it. You can't just have a situation where Michael is killed, but there's no weight or meaning to it, right? There's no heavy sort of symbolism around it and what it all means and this real moment. Like if hypothetically, I'm not saying they're going to do this or that you have to agree with me. I'm just saying hypothetically, if Lori were to sacrifice herself to save Allison and there's like a big fire or something, right? And she's like, get out of here, go. And she, and she goes down with Michael in the fire and, blah, 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 right? That has a lot of weight to it, right? Where Lori is sacrificing herself. She believes, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of symbolism there and there's a lot of weight involved in that sacrifice. And so it has to be something like that. It can't just be that Michael just dies or he's shot, 150 times or he's a stick of dynamite is put in his mouth and his head explodes or something. I mean, nothing cheesy like that, right? I just think if you treat your audience with respect, don't insult the intelligence of Halloween fans. And really at the end of the day, just, don't be afraid to, keep the DNA there, of course, but don't be afraid to have a mature ending, something that is not, just predictable or stereotypical. So that's what I want. Is that what I'm going to get? I don't know, but that's what I want. That's what I would do. Arthur Vega sends in $20. Thank you, Arthur, and says, hey, Dave, here's some cat treat money for Veda, your cat. Sorry for misspelling. Love your thumbnail image for Halloween 2. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you're close. It's just Vada. Yeah, my cat Veda, we named her Veda because she's black, and when we adopted her, her name was Yoda. I don't know why. It's a girl. I don't know why you'd call her Yoda. But so we wanted to change her name, of course, but instead of calling her Vader, right, for Darth Vader, my girlfriend said, well, why don't we call her Veda? Like it's like the female version of Vader. I was like, that's great. Perfect. So became Veda. Of course, when you have an animal that you absolutely adore, you refer to them as everything like but their name, unless they're like misbehaving, right? So, I'm always like, oh, booey, hey, Chuck, what's going on? Hey, Pooh, Chuck, what's happening? Oh, and then of course, if she's like meowing a lot or if she's getting in something like, Veda, stop, I think it's like that with a lot of animals though. But thanks, man. I appreciate it. Techno dopamine again. I think that's it. Techno dopamine. Techno dopamine. So maybe the techno music gives you dopamine. I don't know. Sends in $10. Thank you. Would you give the movie Black Phone a watch and give your thoughts? I watched it the other day, and the way the film was shot, you were the first person that came to mind. A two dudes and some bullshit episode, maybe. Maybe, yeah. I know Tony has seen it. I haven't seen it yet. So again, I'm not a review channel. So if you're new to my channel, I just want to make sure that you all understand I'm not like Cody Leach or even, the We Watched a Movie guys where they will do movie reviews. So when there's more Cody Leach, he's a real movie reviewer and he's terrific. And he's somebody that goes, he watches every movie that comes out, or not every movie, but you know what I mean, right? And he makes a lot of videos and he's a movie reviewer. So I don't review movies. I'm more of a commentator, kind of like talk radio. And, the only real sort of official review that I think I've ever done on my channel are the two Halloween movies, so you will definitely get a Halloween Ends review. But the Black Phone, no, I would not watch it and then do a review on it. But I would watch it and then you could ask me about it and I'd tell you what I thought, or I might make a tweet about it or something. I think Tony has seen it. So I will ask him, because we're doing Two Dudes tomorrow night, obviously, and I will ask him, if he wants to do a watch along of it or something. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing it, though. I definitely want to see it. Just haven't gotten around to it yet. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Movie Chat and More, Part 2, sends in £5, says, I know Jaws 4 is a bit silly, but it doesn't try to be anything more than a fun popcorn movie. I enjoy it for what it is. It gets so much hate. Why? Well, I think... the thing that I find, here's the thing. Whether you like a movie or not is purely subjective, right? It's purely subjective. I can never tell anybody what not to like. You know what I mean? That is, what you like, what resonates with you is subjective. The quality of storytelling and writing and characters, that's not subjective. The quality of filmmaking, it's not subjective, because we can measure that. We can measure, writing. We can measure characters. We can measure, filmmaking techniques and the logistical technicalities of filmmaking. We can measure. And there is a general consensus, when it comes to that kind of stuff, whether it's writing or characters or story or, directing, whatever the case is, we can measure those things to a certain degree of quality. That doesn't mean that, again, certain things may not hit on certain levels with certain people differently as it does others. But Jaws 4, it's a guilty pleasure for some, and that's great. But I think it gets a lot of deserved hate because it pales in comparison to the original. And the idea that we're supposed to believe that the shark, that this time it's personal, like the shark actually is consciously aware and is going specifically after a certain family, I just think is so ridiculous. And the one thing I don't like is what people do, and I understand why they do it. They do it because it helps them justify it in their own minds. I don't like it when people try to, in retrospect, sort of look at a movie and say, oh, well, it's fun if you just watch it from this perspective. Any movie can be fun. Any bad movie can be fun if you watch it from a certain perspective. But what was the intention? Was it the intention to deliver a stupid shark movie? No, not that I'm aware of, right? We do know that I think was it Jaws 2 or Jaws 3 that Zanuck and what's his face there wanted to do a spoof called like Jaws 2 People Zero or something like that. That is, if a Jaws movie came out that was Jaws 2 People Zero and it was some sort of airplane spoof, well then yeah, then you know what to expect, you know how to take it. But I don't think we should give bad movies a pass just because, it's been 40 years or they've grown on us or there's some sort of redeeming qualities. It's fine. I mean, you can enjoy it on a certain level, but it's always, I always kind of roll my eyes when I hear people say, well, but it's good if you do this. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but that wasn't the intention. The intention was to deliver a serious shark movie. And it was just silly. It didn't work. The sharks roaring, the bad effects at the end of the movie. Again, if you like the movie, that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think we should get into the habit of looking at movies that were never intended to be what they ended up becoming and just giving them a pass because, in our own minds, we can just kind of let it go if we watch it from this perspective. It's not like that should never be the case. Well, we're delivering. It's like, I don't know. Anyways, I could go on and on and on and on about this, but I think it gets the appropriate hate. Hate's a strong word, right? It's often tossed around very loosely. But I think Jaws the Revenge, like Jaws 3, are not good Jaws movies. And if anybody wants to rib on them and bust their balls, I think it's fair game. That doesn't mean there's not redeeming qualities, but I don't think we should be like, well, no, it's actually fucking amazing if you watch it from this perspective. Oh, I don't know. Any movie can be like that. The Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast sends in £4.49 and says, get some confetti for Bruce from the TSL. Oh, I have a gigantic TSL banner that I will be setting up. We'll have a booth there and everything. And I'm going to dress up as Frank and Darren. I'm going to have, I'm dressing up as Frank and I'm going to have this stuffed Darren that's going to sit there. And that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, and people are going to come over and yeah. I'm setting up a booth at the wedding. Can you imagine? Yeah, I can't believe it. My best friend of 30 years getting married next Saturday. It's going to be a busy week. It's going to be a very, very, very busy week. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. Let's see here. What else we got going on? You know, blow some bomb. Let me see. AB James says, Dave, Jason has been everywhere. Camp Crystal Lake, Space, Hell, Manhattan, Freddie Realm. Then back to Crystal Lake. If there is a remake, where does Jason go next? Camp Crystal Lake. I mean, you know, if you're going to remake the story, then you tell the story again. Now, that doesn't mean you can't reimagine it a little bit. I'm going to say this again, too. I agree when people say that how hard is it to put together a Friday the 13th film? You just stuff a bunch of, you know, attractive teenagers together and you throw them at a camp and you let Jason go wild and that's it. I agree with you. That is sort of that's really the purest DNA of the Friday the 13th franchise. But here's the problem with that. It is that, you know, I don't think you're going to get a series out of that. This is not the 80s anymore, folks. You know, there's a reason why a lot of horror movies today, those horror movies that we love from the 80s, are largely would be considered. If Terrifier were to come out in the 80s, it would have been well, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty gruesome. It might have had an X rating, or an X rating, an NC-17 perhaps. I'm not sure, but the point I'm making is that a lot of those movies would have had theatrical releases in the US anyway. But now those movies don't get theatrical releases. They go straight to streaming, or they're B movie kind of stuff. So they were always B movie kind of shit anyway. But I think it's important to remember that whoever makes Friday the 13th, yes, in principle, it's very easy to make a Friday the 13th movie in terms of what you need, the ingredients you need. But I don't know if there's any longevity to that. I don't know if you can get a whole series out of that. Yes, in the 80s you could, because, you know, there was no internet and people didn't, you know, they just wanted to see a bunch of attractive people get killed every year at a camp. But now you might be able to get away with that at first, but you're going to have a story and a direction of where you're going to go with. And I don't know if taking Jason out of Crystal Lake, I don't know what to do with Jason. You know, what Vincent DeSanti has done is good, but even that has a shelf life, right? He's telling a story. I mean, he's got Never Hike Alone. He's got the prequel Never Hike in the Snow, and then Never Hike Alone 2, but it's going to wrap everything up. I mean, even that, I don't know if he has any ideas of where it could go, but even that is sort of self-contained in a three episode or 3 film story. And there's just, guys, I don't know what you do. I just don't believe taking Jason and putting him in France now or Toronto is going to... I sound like but I just feel it's over. It's over. You know, I do. I don't... I'm ready to be proven wrong. But in order to have longevity to Friday the 13th, you're going to have to do something that is not just kids at a camp. I think that's what you're going to have to do the first time around, or at least some sort of, I don't know, like, I don't know. I'm thinking too hard about this. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just don't think you're going to get... I guess I'm trying to say is that people who say it's easy, just do this. Yeah, you could do that for the first movie, but you're not going to get 7 movies out of that again. This isn't 1985. People are not going to want to go to the theater to see 7 fucking movies. I'm telling you, it's not going to work. it's not going to work. So they're either 7 straight to streaming films and, even, I don't know what you do with this guy. I don't know. I really don't know. And taking him out of Crystal Lake and doing something really experimental, like putting him in France, but it's Jason. I mean, what is this, a Friday the 13th movie then? Why don't you just make a different movie altogether then and just let Jason rest? Sometimes we have to remember that these types of characters, whether it's Michael or Jason or Freddie, are best left in their time periods. It's like trying to make a Frankenstein movie or a Mummy movie or something and trying to modernize it and bring it into the 21st century. It's not that it can't be done, but it's always a risk because you have to present it in a very serious way now. Those campy type of cheesy 80s Friday the 13th movies, I don't think are going to fly today. I really don't. They're going to have a very short shelf life because I think audiences are smarter. I think they demand more. I think they expect more maturity because that's what we're getting from horror now. So what you do with Jason that isn't cheesy, I think you got to go back. I think you have to go all the way back. And maybe you tell the story of Pamela, which I know is not what people want. But if you want a new incarnation of Jason to have longevity, you're not going to get it with just, look what happened in 2009, right? That's what they did, and it wasn't successful enough to continue the franchise. I know the franchise went into hell after that in terms of the lawsuits and all that. But I don't think they were going to make another one anyway. I don't think anyway. I don't know, man. I got to think about it more. But I do know that you're not going to get the same string of Friday the 13th movies in the 80s like today. You got to think of something. Because if you want longevity, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a good question, though. Techno Dopamine sends in $20. Thanks, buddy. Very generous of you. Says, you're saying the name right. Oh, cool. Its meaning is the behind the dopamine that gets released when you're using technology and on Facebook, Instagram, etc. And yes, I just meant your commentary. I've binge watched all of your videos. How do I join Patreon? Oh, cool. Well, there's a link in the description. There's a link. Thanks very much, man. I really appreciate that. There's a link in the description to my Patreon, and that's how you can check. You can join there. You can join there. I really appreciate that very much. Yeah, that was in regards to the sequel concept, I think you're talking about, right? Very cool, man. Very cool. And yeah, there's certainly a lot of dopamine hits happening to a lot of people when it comes to technology. No doubt about it. Dub says, I get on break and my man Dave's live. What a treat. Hope you're doing great, Dave. Love your channel. Thanks very much, Dub. Really appreciate that. And I hope you are doing well too. Let me see here. Scrolling. Keep that scroll. Dennis Williams sends in $4.99. Says, "Hey Dave, what is something in horror movies from the late 70s and 80s you wish would make a comeback or return in modern horror movies?" The thing that comes to my mind is more of that pensive, slower burn theater of the mind. But we do see that. We do see it, you get it in Hereditary and you get it in, this is not, and for the first kind of 3/4 of, or the first half anyway, of The Conjuring. The first Conjuring, you got it. You got it in the first Insidious movie. I would like to see more smaller horror movies because I think, and there's a lot out there, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of independent horror movies out there, foreign horror films. But when it comes to the Hollywood mainstream, like if all you pay attention to is just the Hollywood mainstream horror movies, yeah, you don't get this too much. But I really appreciate indie horror films that rely on suspense, theater of the mind, that slow burn. I wish those kinds of movies got more eyeballs, got more marketing. Obviously, if you're an indie film and you're not picked up by a distributor, or if you're trying to distribute your own movie or trying to get it on Prime or whatever the case is, it's a very difficult road. And one of the things, if you're an indie filmmaker, that you always have to factor in is a marketing budget. If you're not backed by a studio, or if a studio doesn't pick you up, and it's no guarantees that they would spend the money you hope they spend on marketing your movie anyway, they would have to really believe in your film. They may just see it as something they want and they throw it up on Prime with very little fanfare. I mean, that can happen too. But I would love it if more of those smaller kind of movies got more eyeballs on it. I think when you are an indie film, and again, when I say this only because I think there are people that still confuse the two. When I say indie film, I don't mean, home movie or amateur film. All an indie film is a movie that was created outside of the studio system. There are many, thousands of professional, movies that are independent films. The first Insidious was an independent film, I believe, anyway. There's lots of independent movies. So was Insidious independent? I think it was. But anyway, the point I'm making is that I see a lot of people sort of thinking that indie means like you and your friends making a movie. And yes, I guess you could be lumped in there because but that's not what it actually means. It just means that you're not backed by Paramount. You know what I mean? Or you have no, studio backing, right? Outside of the studio system with an independent production company. So I would like to see more of these indie films that are really good, get more sort of eyeballs on them, more marketing dollars be put into some of them, because there's some I've watched that have just been plopped onto Netflix or plopped onto Prime with no fanfare, and I'm like, fuck, that was really good. Like, that was a really good movie. It's too bad there's no marketing dollars behind this. So yeah, it's just more of that theater of the mind, that slow burn. I wish we saw that more with Hollywood films, or films that horror movies that Hollywood has decided to market on a big scale. But, it's all who it's going to appeal to, right? In a lot of cases, those kinds of movies do not appeal to the masses, do not appeal to a younger demographic. So that's why, and I get that, but it would be that. I would love to see a return to more of that form on a mainstream level, I think, on a regular basis. That's what I would love to see. Movie Chat and More Part 2 says, hate Halloween Kills. Yet I treated my nephew to the movie, two friends, on a different night. Excuse me. And the Blu-ray for the collection. Bastards got my money 6 times. 6 times, Chef. I showed him 6 times. Well, that was very nice of you, though, right? You treated your nephew and friends. And sometimes it's not about the movie you're watching. It is about the people you're with and about the experience of just being with them and hanging out and having a good time. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's what it's all about. Let me see here. JBeach12078 says, Dave, thoughts on how to make a decent found footage horror? Well, I mean, I have often said that I think the found footage subgenre is largely untapped. I think it's oversaturated, and I think it's been exploited, but all in the wrong ways. I do think there is still a found footage movie, or even a couple of them out there, that have yet to make their mark. I mean, on like a Blair Witch Project level in terms of its pop culture zeitgeist footprint. I really do believe that. But I think, as I've often said, and again, I haven't seen every found footage movie in existence, but some of the found footage movies I've seen, I have found to be too overly produced. So whether that's the sound effects or it's too polished, too produced, too staged. Whereas what excuse me, let me try that again. What Blair Witch had going for it is what I was trying to say, is that it was very unpolished. And a big reason for that is because a lot of what they were doing was improvised, and they were going out there. They knew the information they had to get across. Had to get across. They knew what they were supposed to say, but there was really no structure in terms of, formal presentation. There were many shots where their heads were cut off. They were showing the ground, and it was very real. Yes, of course, it came out in 1999. So the internet, for all intents and purposes, was in its infancy as we know it to be, of course, today. There was no social media. The Blair Witch Project was one of the first movies of its kind to be marketed online, and a lot of people thought it was real. But one of the reasons why a lot of people thought it was real was not just because of the naivety of, the population at that time and the internet and the brilliant marketing campaign. Yes, all that helped. But when you watch the movie, it also felt very real. The dialogue, the performances, it was very candid, very in the moment. And that was deliberate. That was on purpose. And although there are some found footage movies I've seen that are like that, there's a lot that have a very sort of polish to them. Feels like a structure. And of course, if you are if it's a found footage movie that has like a monster or something, the sound design is too produced. It doesn't feel like it fits in with the environment of the location. I thought Blair Witch 2016 was like that. So I believe that there's some good ones out there. I've seen a lot of them. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones. But I still think I do not believe that Blair Witch, in terms of its pop culture footprint and its impact in the pop culture zeitgeist, I still think there's another Blair Witch out there. And I don't mean in terms of the story. I mean in terms of its impact, like everybody's fucking losing their minds over it. Now, is it harder today? Yes, it's much harder today because one of the driving forces that made the Blair Witch so popular and people rushing out to see it is because a large portion of the population thought it was real. Well, nobody is going to think a found footage movie is real anymore because it's its own subgenre. So yes, it's tricky. Cloverfield was an example of a found footage movie done right. So I still think there is another found footage movie out there somewhere that can hit on a level, or maybe not as much as the Blair Witch because of, the era we're in now, but certainly another real one that gets people talking, where it's like, wow, holy shit. So for me, it's just about realism, candid, real, very sort of, there's a saying when you're shooting a movie, people are going to laugh, but it doesn't mean what it sounds like it means. When you're setting up a shot, you could say, do you want to shoot it like this or do you want to shoot it dirty? And when you say, do you want to shoot it dirty? It just means, less structured, less, let's not take all the time to figure it. Let's just shoot it. Let's just shoot it. Let's just shoot. Just set up the camera. Let's just shoot it. And that can be a very valuable thing depending on what you're trying to shoot, right? If it's in the moment, if it's a dialogue scene, if it's a fight scene, or if it's intense, or whatever the case is, right? Let's just shoot it dirty. And I think found footage works like that, because in a lot of cases, when you're having a found footage movie, the people that have the cameras or their phones or whatever the case is are not filmmakers. So it should never look structured. The angles should never there should be headroom to spare. There should be awkward negative space. It should look like somebody who doesn't know fuck all about filmmaking is shooting this. And that would help. Now, obviously in Blair Witch, they did know a thing or two about it. And you can go too far too. You can go too far the other way where it feels really awkward and now we can't watch this. It's about balance, but candid, real, in the moment, largely improv from people who are very good at it and can make it sound really conversational. With a clear direction and a clear identified source in terms of, or endpoint in terms of what the scene needs, of course. That's what I think. David Irwin says, who is your favorite director? P.S. I really enjoyed the Halloween 5 watch along with Darren and Frank yesterday. Hilarious. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it was awesome. I love going on the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast. It was a lot of fun, definitely. My favorite director is Steven Spielberg. Yep, he's my favorite director, has always been my favorite director. And so that's who it is. Mr. Steve Spielberg himself. John Dez sends in $9.99, says, hey, Dave, no question here. Just want to say thank you for all you do for us film, horror, and Halloween fans with your uploads. They really get me through my days. Get Veda some catnip. She's actually due for some new catnip, so I will definitely do that. Thank you, John. I really appreciate that, man. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun. My apologies, I haven't had any sort of real, or at least as many standalone videos as I would want on the channel over the last few weeks, but it's just been really busy with everything that's been going on. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Let's see here. Biggest Halloween fan. Here is the biggest Halloween fan right here. It says, Dave, I'm a huge fan of your channel, but why do you need to hate Halloween 5 and Halloween 2002? Personally, those are my two favorite Halloween movies. 78 is also great. Well, biggest Halloween fan, if you think Halloween 5 and Halloween Resurrection are great, that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters. All that matters is that you think they are great. And if you think they are great, nobody can take that away from you. I don't think they're great. I do not like Halloween 5. I do not like Halloween Resurrection. Now, I would prefer to watch 5 over Resurrection because I think there are, it's not saying much, I think there are more redeeming qualities in 5 than there are in Resurrection. But I just don't like them. I don't like them. And I have plenty of videos on my channel where I talk about why. But yeah, I like to bust their balls, as they say. I like to roast Halloween 5 and Halloween Resurrection because it's fun to do. But certainly that is not me saying that you are an idiot if you like those movies. I would never say that. You're not an idiot. You like those movies. They work for you. And there could be a variety of reasons why they do. I mean, I'm 43 years old, right? And I don't know how old you are, but if you're, say, 25 and you grew up with those movies, well, there's a real nostalgic connection for you there, right? I mean, in terms of Halloween Resurrection. Halloween 5, of course, you wouldn't have been alive. But there's a variety of reasons why we like certain installments. Halloween H2O, for a lot of people, it was the first Halloween movie they ever saw. It was the first Halloween film they ever saw in the movie theater. There's a big nostalgic connection for a lot of Halloween H2O fans. But I was already 19 when the movie came out, and I'd been watching Halloween movies for 12, 13, 14 years prior to that, going back to the 80s, right? So I was disappointed with Halloween H2O. But the point I'm making is that, yes, on this channel, I talk about the movies I love, I talk about the movies I hate, and I like to bust their balls. But that's not me saying that if you like them, well, then you're just an idiot. No, I'm glad you like them. I do. I wish I could like them as much as other people, but you're always welcome here. Every kind of Halloween fan is welcome here. Absolutely. Okay, got that. Did I get all the super chats so far? I think I have. I believe I have. Okay. Da-da-da. Tabitha Short! Great to see Tabitha here. I have to watch the stream from yesterday. I missed it because I was at an event. Can't wait to watch it. The one with Darren and Frank. Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Let's see here. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, do you have any favorite kills from Don Shanks when he played Michael in Halloween 5? And you also have one George P. Wilbur kill, each from Halloween 4 and Halloween 6. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Chester. Halloween 5 kill from Shanks. I'm going to go with the pitchfork. When he slices, what's his face? Just puts it right through his torso. That one. He's like, blood coming down. He's like dripping blood onto, what's her face? Sammy. That'll be one for me. George P. Wilbur in 4. I was going to go the shotgun through Kelly Meeker, but technically that's not George P. Wilbur. So I'm going to go with Brady. I'll go with Brady. Top of the stairs, moonlight shining in, snaps his neck. I'll go with Brady. And then in 6, I'll go with, I don't know, why not Jamie at the beginning? Pushing Jamie down onto that farm equipment or whatever that was. I don't know. There might be another one in 6 that I would like better. I'm not entirely sure, but well, I guess you could say all the hacking he did at the in the operating room there too. But again, I don't think that was George P. Wilbur. I think that was the other guy that came in, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken though. Thanks, Chester, though. Appreciate it. Nick Jenny sends in $4.99, says, Dave, first time watching Halloween 5 with you and Frank and Darren yesterday. Complete trash. Laughed my ass off. Yeah, it's but like Darren said too, I mean, like I said on the stream, I think, and understandably so, I would understand why. I think there are probably a lot of people that if I was to do a poll, what's my least favorite Halloween movie? I bet you a lot of people would pick 5 because of how much I roasted on this channel. But it's actually not my least favorite. My least favorite would probably be Resurrection. That and maybe Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 or something like that. But funny enough, Halloween 5 is not my least favorite. I don't like it, but I do, like Darren said, I can enjoy watching it because I have fun roasting it. And there are some redeeming qualities in that movie, like the laundry chute scene, and Loomis is, I mean, he's just batshit crazy in that movie, but it's still Loomis, and you can, I guess, sort of glom onto him a little bit. It's nice to see his face again. And there's a few moments that are like, oh, that's a cool shot. That's a nice moment. It's just the story and the direction that they took with it that really just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And it's just so fun to roast. But Resurrection is worse. Yeah, it's just terrible. I can't even think of a redeeming thing in that movie. Sure, there is one shot of Michael walking towards the camera outside that looks very cool, looks very retro Michael. But beyond that, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's crazy stuff. Movie Chat and More Part 2 sends in £2, says, will Tony and yourself ever go through the Rockies? Probably not. I could see us watching a Rocky movie. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if Tony, I don't even know if Tony's seen the Rockies. I'm not sure. We haven't really talked about them. So I'm going to say I don't know, but you never know. Maybe. Feels like a summer kind of movie to me, the Rocky films, but you never know. The Slaughtered Lamb says, it's a movie I can have fun with. It has a few decent moments and gin blossomed Loomis. Oh, he is tanked in this movie. He's tanked. And it's so funny because he's far better in Halloween 6. Far better in Halloween 6. But I always love that, our introduction to him in 6 where, you hear or you hear on the radio, Loomis is psychiatrist. Whatever happened to that guy anyway? I think he's dead or, whatever. And Loomis just turns, is like, not dead, just very much retired. And it's like, who's he talking to? He's just saying that out loud. Really, you didn't need him to say anything. You could have just, have the camera kind of come around him and he's there at his typewriter and he's, maybe he smiles or I don't know. I just find it kind of funny. It's funny. But yeah, 5 is one of those movies where you can have fun with it, but because it's fun to rib on it. It's fun to roast. And Halloween Resurrection is fun to roast too, but like Darren said, I struggle through that movie. It's bad. It's a bad film. It's so ironic that Rick Rosenthal was the director too. Like, what happened? It's not Aiden, says Dave. Are there any unmade Halloween sequels that you wish would have been made? Well, I have not gone through the Taking Shape books. So there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't know and that I'm not aware of yet. But I'm going to say no, really. I mean, the two that come to mind, of course, is Carpenter's alternate Halloween 2. Not alternate, but his, the first idea where it takes place like however many years later, Laurie's moved away or she's in an apartment building and Michael comes back and stalks her in an apartment building. That's kind of an interesting concept because of everything you could use in an apartment building. The elevator shafts, the stairwells, different people's apartments that you could find yourself in, balconies. Like there's a lot of things you could, basements, underground parking. Like there's a lot of cool things that you could utilize in an apartment building. And you could probably shoot the whole movie there, really, because there's so much stuff that you can play with. There's the original idea for Halloween 4, which Mustafa did not want to go with, which was Michael is dead, but Haddonfield has banned Halloween, but it's sort of the suppression of Halloween and Michael that ironically brings him back. But I agree that it's probably too cerebral for people. But I thought it was interesting, But some of the stuff that I've heard about, not really. I got to brush up on it, though. I have to brush up on it because, again, I don't have the books. I haven't read the books. So I have to brush up on some of those ones that came to light, ideas that never were, and whether or not I think that would have been a better direction to go in. Yeah. Nick Jenny sends another $4.99. Thank you, Nick, and says, hate Resurrection as well, but I don't know. Out of all the Halloween movies, 5 felt like the last Halloween movie. Intro and laundry chute were good, though. 5 felt like the last. Well, it was for many years. It was for 6 years. I don't know how old you are, Nick, but maybe that's why it kind of feels that way. For 6 years, there were no Halloween films, and then all of a sudden they make one, and it turned out to be what it was. But yeah, the intro is a good intro. The intro is a good intro. And if you've noticed too, it's kind of common knowledge now, but there are still some people that go, oh yeah, I never really thought about it. The title of Halloween 5 does actually not have the subtitle. When you watch the movie, it just says Halloween 5. It does not say The Revenge of Michael Myers. Apparently, the subtitle, The Revenge of Michael Myers, was just used on the marketing. When they went into marketing and they were, posters and TV spots and, what have you, that's where they put the Revenge of Michael Myers. But it actually does not, that actual subtitle does not appear in the movie anywhere, which is interesting. But great opening title sequence. The music is great. Alan Howarth is great. Even the music in 6 is great. The laundry chute scene is really good, really suspenseful. But what else? There's some moments in the film in terms of the cinematography at night that I like. But overall, it's a swing and a miss. It's a swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Movie Chat at More Part 2. £2 says Creed and Clubber's son in Creed 3 apparently dumb. Excuse me. Creed versus Clubber's son in Creed 3 apparently dumb. I haven't heard anything about that. I actually haven't heard too much about Creed 3. So I don't know what the story is, Richard, but if that is true, yes, that is dumb. Clubber Lang has unless they're going to try and weave it in that, Apollo Creed had some sort of issue with, some sort of backstory, some sort of history with Clubber Lang. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why I know why, but why are we making a Creed 3? Why? It's over. The story's done. He avenged his father's death. It's over. It's done. Let it fucking go. It's done. I'm done. Again, doesn't mean the movie's not going to be good. I'll watch and be like, this is great. This is better than Creed and Creed 2. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Michael B. Jordan's directing. Who knows? I have no idea how he's going to do or how it's going to shape up. but it makes no sense. It makes no sense. There's no history. There's a reason why he fought Drago's son, right? There's a reason for that. There's a personal vendetta. There's a history there. I mean, not personally against the son in particular. The son wasn't alive, but in terms of the family dynamic and the name and all that, yes, it makes perfect sense. Clubber Lang? Creed versus Clubber's son? I really hope that's not what it is. I really hope that's not what it is. Makes no sense to me. Makes no sense. Let's see here. Scared Straight Production says, referring to your Halloween 4 What If video, in the script for Halloween 4, Jamie is 6 years old, and they originally ended it with Jamie killing Rachel. Well, it's weird because it's so weird. This came to light the other day, last week on the Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, when Tony and I were talking about a what if scenario involving Halloween 4, and what if Laurie didn't die and she actually was in Halloween 4, and how would that change the film and the dynamic, and how would that change 5 and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things was that somebody had said that Jamie was supposed to be 6 years old in Halloween 4 because she's 6 in the book or something like that. Always remember, folks, that to always take the novelization of any movie with a grain of salt. Generally speaking, unless it's a film that is adapted from a novel, right? So the screenplay was adapted from the novel itself. Keep in mind that when it comes to these Halloween movies, these novels are written after the fact. They're written after the script is done. And in a lot of cases, creative liberties will be taken for the book that aren't necessarily canon with the film. Because what you're doing is, with a book, you have more time to breathe. You have more time to flesh things out. There's more nuances in there. You have, 150, 200 pages. And depending on how good of a writer you are or what kind of a writer you are, you can really make those things count. But let's also not forget that in the novelization of Halloween 1978, Michael Myers has a mask with blue eyeshadow and big red lipstick. So, let's try to reel in this gatekeeping of, but in the novel, okay, yes. And also in the novel, Michael, like I said, had a mask with big, let's just remember that there are reasons why some authors will be given the creative licensing to expand on certain things, and whatever the case is. I never look to the novelization. Maybe it's because I'm not a reader. I don't know. But I never look to the books for that kind of stuff. I just don't, because they're written after the fact, unless it's a very specific sort of thing that is able to then in subsequent movies be introduced or something. But if it's never, stop it. Yes, but I am aware that in the novel she's supposed to be 6, but in the movie you hear Rachel say something to the effect of, at the very beginning of the movie, Rachel is talking to Jamie and she says, are you trying to go, I'm paraphrasing, are you trying to go for the 7-year-old insomnia championship or something like that? She says something like that, which now alludes to Jamie being 7. Okay, well, but then in Halloween 5, she's like 9. Well, so we don't know. Okay, so the book itself was written after, and here you have 2 completely different ages. The script, right? Script 2. I do not believe for one fucking second that little girl is 6 years old. Don't. No. Why? Because Danielle Harris herself turned 10 on set. She does not look like a 6-year-old child at all, which is why during the stream last week, I was surprised. I was like, what, 6? She looks like she's like 8 or 9. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think she was that young. She doesn't look like she's in, the first grade. I mean, she looks like she's in grade 3 or 4 or something. She looks much older than 6. So yeah, but I guess because we hear Rachel make that funny remark about being 7, she's 7. She's not 6. Okay, I still think that's pushing it. I still think it's pushing it. She looks like she's 8 or 9 to me, really, at the end of the day. But anyway, yeah, try not to take the novelization of these horror movies to heart, because like I said, red lipstick, blue eyeshadow. that's not what we had in the movie. So, you know. Yeah. Scared Straight Production says, it doesn't surprise me they had an 8-9-year-old playing a 6-year-old. Will Sandon doesn't look 6. No, that doesn't surprise me. But what surprised, no, that's commonplace. What surprises me is to actually make her that young. Why? I mean, the only thing I can think of is that they want in the book or in the script, they were trying to parallel 6-year-old Michael. Okay, but I mean, it's not necessary. I don't, and I guess at the end of the movie with her doing I mean, I get it. I get it, but I don't believe it. There's something about, but I will say this, there's something about Will Sandon standing there where I do believe that he's 6 years old. Now, one of the reasons why I might believe that and have no trouble believing that is because we have nothing else with him. So we're not seeing him speak. We're not seeing him move through the space. We're not seeing him talk to adults. We're not seeing him. We're just seeing him standing there with his cute little face and just like he's dumbfounded, and that's it. So to say that that is a 6-year-old child, I go, okay, I think it's easier for me to believe and buy into because I have no other context with him. I don't know what he sounds like. I don't know how mature he is or isn't. I don't know, how he's speaking I have no context. So just looking at him, I go, okay, sure, why not? Sure. But with Jamie, we get everything in a bag of Smarties, right? I mean, Smarties. The Americans probably don't know what that is. We get everything in a bag of M&Ms. We have all this stuff with her. She's moving through the space. She's talking. She's speaking. She's laughing. And because of that, I don't believe she's 6 years old. You know what I mean? If it was just her at the top of the stairs with the scissors in her hand, that little girl is 6. I'd go, okay, sure. It's a little girl. Sure. Okay, sure. But with everything we've seen of her, I just don't believe she's 6. She looks, and again, I know it might seem strange because it's like, well, what's 2 years? Okay, she's not 6, she's 8. It's only 2 years. But at that age, there's a big difference between 6 and 8. The way you look, the way you sound, the way you talk, it's a big difference. Big difference. That's how I feel about it anyway. How long are we going? So we've been going, just over an hour. Feels longer for some reason. I don't know why. Feels longer. Maybe it's because I'm anticipating because I know I have to go to a wedding later. Bob Birkin says, Dave. Yes, Bob. What would you think of a different short movie based on some Halloween comic book novel? It depends on what it is. I'm not too familiar with the comics or the novels. So I would have to know what the story is and what it's all about. And maybe, maybe if it resonates and it's pretty good, I'd be open to it. The last thing I want to see, and doesn't mean it wouldn't be good. Doesn't mean I wouldn't be there first in line. But if you were just to ask me at face value, the last thing I want to see is Halloween ends now. And then a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, they're rebooting it. They're telling it all over again. I'd be like, have we not milked this cow to death? I mean, is there any more water we can get from this? Or milk, I should say, water. Milk from this? I don't know, man. I don't know. Pumpkinhead sends in $5. Thanks, buddy. Says, hi, Dave. What do you think makes Michael Myers unique? Iconic and fascinating, creepy and just so mysterious compared to Freddie, Jason, others. Great question, Pumpkinhead. I've answered this before as well, and it is simply, it is the anonymity and the ambiguity and the mystique of the character. So, and it's not just indicative of Michael. I mean, it's part of the reason why before the prequel films, why Darth Vader was so intriguing. I mean, yes, he's tall and he's majestic looking and he's evil and he's cool looking, but it's largely because we know nothing about him, where he comes from, who is this person, and the audience. There's always that sort of natural need to want to know. But Michael, we don't know. We don't know why he's evil. We don't know why he did what he did. Why did he murder his sister? We don't know. We have no idea. When you watch true crime, some of the most mysterious, creepy, goosebump-inducing sort of true crime documentaries always involve that mystery. And one day he just snapped, or, whatever the case is, or there's always a mystery. It's eerie and it's creepy. And there's like, what happened to this husband or this wife or this couple goes missing, right? And the whole documentary, like the whole 2 hours is all about, what happened to Mr. and Mrs. Johnson on the night of January the 5th, 2002. And, you walk into their home and everything seems normal. And like, we relish in that, right? It's creepy and it's eerie and it's almost otherworldly. And, that's what that Michael Myers has, that about the character, the mystery, and, of what he is, what makes him tick, all that kind of stuff. So yes, that is a big part of it. We don't think of this consciously. It's not like we're consciously self-aware of this, really. It's more of just an instinctual kind of thing when you watch the movies. It's a feeling you get, whenever you see his character or his character comes on screen or you talk about his character or whatever the case is. It's not that Freddie and Jason aren't cool and they're not awesome and, mysterious from a certain perspective as well. But with cat hair, with Freddie and Jason, we know their backstories. So we know why they're doing what they're doing. We know that Jason is just in this perpetual state of avenging his mother's death. I mean, really, that is it. I think he can stop now. I think he avenged his mother's death quite a few years ago. But that was the reason given, right? He avenged his mother's death and vowed to, for whatever reason, kill anybody who ever set foot on it. That's what he was doing, right? We know that. With Freddy Krueger, he's a child murderer. I mean, we know this. We know the why of what he's doing. With Ghostface, we always know the why, whoever Ghostface is, because it's revealed at the end of every Scream movie. With Chucky, we know the why. We know where he comes from. It was Charles Lee Ray who put his soul into the doll of a good guy doll. We know where Chucky comes from. Do you know what I mean? Leatherface, again, we know a lot of the why. We have no idea with Michael. No idea. It was just a 6-year-old that snapped. And that is one of the biggest things I agree with John Carpenter on, is preserving the integrity of that. Because the second you give a why, which is what they did in Halloween 6, or what Halloween, Rob Zombie's 2 films were really all about, it's not that you can't enjoy a movie that gives an explanation on a certain level, but when you give an explanation, you immediately destroy the mystique. We know now. And sometimes, like talking about Bigfoot or UFOs or the Loch Ness Monster, or, part of the allure and fun about talking about those things is the unknown, is the mystery, is the journey. It's because we don't know. The second we know the truth, it's not that it won't be fun to talk about it anymore, but there's going to be a charm and a mystery and a feeling that will feel like it's missing because we now know. So the mystery's gone. We now know the truth. And Michael works best in small doses because of that. It's not a character that can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. But when it's used well, when it's implemented in any character, in any film character, and it's utilized really well, it can be very effective. And Michael, he's the epitome of evil. He's a force of nature. Now, again, that doesn't mean the characters in the story cannot try to figure that out. Like, we as an audience are the character. We can't relate to Michael, but we can relate to Laurie or Loomis or Allison or Annie or whoever, right? We are the characters in the film that Michael is sort of attacking. So I have always said that I think it's okay if the characters in the movie are questioning Michael. Who is he? What is it? Why did he kill his sister? All that kind of stuff, because it only adds to the mystery. And it's like we're all like around this campfire trying to figure it out, right? And that's fun. And we saw a bit of that in Halloween Kills, where Hawkins was talking about it to Laurie and Laurie was talking about it and all that kind of stuff. And so to continue to have that is important. But I am hoping that Halloween ends with us never knowing. It can feel like we're on the cusp of knowing. It can feel like we're almost there, but we should never know. We should never know. It's not quantifiable. You can't quantify it. It just is. And I know that, especially for today's day and age, that might be difficult for people to accept. But that's why Michael works. That is one of the big reasons why he has endured. And it's one of the big reasons why you could make the argument that he's cooler than Freddie or Jason. I'm not saying you would agree with that. I'm just saying that you can make that argument. Mason James sends in $5, says, if you were going to kill off Michael in Ends, how would you do it? I would have Michael and Laurie die together. I would have Michael and Laurie die together. That's what I would have in some big epic fire where Laurie is sacrificing herself to save Allison in the town of Haddonfield. There you go. Movie Chat and More Part 2 sends in £5, says, if you could go to any cutting room floor and give any movie the sly Rocky IV treatment, which movie would you choose, Dave? I don't know. That's a good question. It would have to be a movie that I felt needed it. I don't know, Richard. Any movie? I don't know. Maybe Halloween 5. There you go. I'll see what they have, what was left on the cutting room floor for Halloween 5. And I'd walk in and see if I can paste together, remove the Man in Black altogether and see if I can make it still work. I don't know. That might be kind of fun. Interesting experiment. It's Not Aiden sends in $2 and says, thoughts on what Loomis whispered in Michael's ear in Halloween 5. Did he whisper something? Is it not audible? I'm not sure. I got to go back and watch it. And watch it again. I know I just watched it yesterday, but when you're doing a watch along, you're paying attention, but you're also giving commentary. And so I'd have to go back and watch that scene again. I don't know. Maybe he said something like, "Do you like the smell of my breath?" Maybe that's what he said. I don't know, man. Duke Fleet says, hey, Dave, if you could pick an A-lister to play Michael Myers, who would you choose? I wouldn't choose anybody. I think it's irrelevant. That it's not a role that I think needs an A-list actor to play Michael Myers. I would choose nobody. Jose Reyes sends in $4.99, says, Dave, what do you think about film director Ari Aster? Or Ari Aster, I guess I should say. And was it a missed opportunity to have him direct these 3 Halloween films for Blum? Okay, first of all, Ari Aster is the, just want to make sure I'm getting the right director. He's the Hereditary guy, right? Yeah. Hereditary, Midsommar. Was he ever in contention to direct these Halloween movies? I don't recall ever hearing that. But what do I think of him as a director? Well, the movies he has directed, I really liked Hereditary. I liked Midsommar. I did. He's currently got one coming out next year called Disappointment Boulevard. Interesting. And before Hereditary, he was just making short films. So his 2 feature films, Midsommar and Hereditary, I both liked. So I'm eager to see his next venture. When it comes to Halloween, the 3 Halloween movies, I don't think he was ever in contention. I don't know, but I don't think he ever was. But I think you're asking me, what would I think if he actually did do them? I don't know. Hereditary and Midsommar are very different, conceptually and just a different subgenre of horror. That doesn't mean that he couldn't do it. But I don't know what an Ari Aster Halloween movie would have been like. I don't know if he would have an interest. I'm not sure. I think I would have been more interested to see James Wan. Not because and listen, James Wan, the only slasher movie he's really done, if you could even call it a slasher, it's not even a slasher, would be the first Saw movie. And I know that they're considered slashers now, but that first Saw movie, when it came out in 2004, I mean, really, it's a psychological horror, really, at the end of the day. More in the vein, now, I don't think it's as good as Seven, but more in that vein, as opposed to like a Freddie or a Jason movie. And Dead Silence, I mean, but the two Conjuring movies and the two Insidious movies are supernatural, paranormal. They're not slasher movies. But what I do appreciate about Wan is his ability to create tension and suspense, and his ability to have a slow burn. Like I said, when you watch the first Conjuring, I think the first Conjuring is better than the second. I think the first Insidious is better than the second. But both those movies have, especially the first installments, have terrific horror sensibilities, with light and shadow and just a slow burn, a creepy feel, not peaking too soon. I don't know if he uses the same DP on each film he does, but certainly there's a stylistic choice in the cinematography that I appreciate in his horror movies. So it would have been interesting to see him take on Halloween, because I think a lot of his strengths are a lot of what makes Halloween so good, mood, atmosphere, suspense, slow burn. And I think James Wan's very good at that, to bring those sensibilities and to bring those things to Halloween 18. It would have been interesting. I don't know if the movie would have succeeded overall, because it would have been interesting to see then how would he handle sort of the slasher elements. But you look at Insidious, you look at The Conjuring, you look at Saw, he probably could handle them fine. I would have been interested to see that. Ari Aster is a bit too elevated, I think, in terms of what we've seen so far. But that doesn't mean that he couldn't have done it, because I think Ari Aster at least would have brought a maturity to the piece, which I think it needed as well. Not that 18 didn't have a certain level of maturity. It did. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Kevin L sends in $4.99, says, Dave, do you think Myers got aroused when Linda asked him, see anything you like, or do you think Michael Myers is asexual? I don't think he got aroused at all. I think he just saw her and was like, meh, I'm going to kill you. I don't care. That's what I think, Kevin. That's what I think. He got no more aroused than your cat would if you were walking around naked in front of it. Geek Muscle Drew sends in $2, says, I hate Resurrection, but I do like the mask a bit. Yeah, it's funny. The mask is not a very good mask in my estimation. But under the right lighting, and there's very few of this in the movie too, but under the right lighting, there's a few moments where the mask looks almost okay in certain lighting. But the Resurrection mask is not very good. I don't think so anyway. But hey, if you like it, that's all that matters. Movie Chat and More Part 2 sends in £5, says, I've been trying to get you to watch the Ray Weiss movie Dead End for 3 years. For the love of all that's holy, please at least watch the trailer. Dead End. Richard, with all due respect, I don't even recall you mentioning that movie. I don't even recall. So I will have to, I will check out the trailer at some point. But I've never heard of the movie. I don't think anyway. I don't think Dead End. I don't know. There's a lot of movies I think I haven't heard of, and then I look them up and I'm like, oh yeah, I have. I just haven't watched it. But yeah, I don't recall you mentioning it. But that's also because it's kind of like how, like, people have to remember too that it's like when YouTube is like you know how when you walk into a store and there's somebody behind the counter and you go out, now you remember the person working behind the counter because you have a single relationship with that person. But the person behind the counter sees thousands of people every week. And so if you were to come in on Monday and then come in again on Friday, they probably wouldn't remember who you were. If you come in regularly, they would remember, they'll start to remember you because that's a regular customer. But unless there's like a real sort of relationship, they don't remember anything. I mean, I went to my car dealership a couple of weeks ago, not one that I usually go to, but I was just there like a few days prior, and I spoke to this guy who I had been talking to just a few days prior, and I was like, "Oh, I'm the guy that came in to say such and such and such and such," and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think it was just like 2 days ago." I think it's kind of like that with YouTube. I get so many questions. I see so many avatars. I see so many names. I get so many comments that sometimes if you say something there's just so much that comes in. I have so many customers that sometimes it's hard for me to remember. So my apologies for not remembering, but Dead End. Okay, I will try to put that in the back of my head. Techno Dopamine sends in $10. Thanks, buddy. Says, did you know Stallone got his name in Rocky as the Italian Stallion from a porno he starred in before his acting career jumped off and was also called the Italian Stallion? I did know that. Yes. Oh yeah, no, he was, Sylvester Stallone was like wasn't he like the creeper or something in that movie, or the voyeur, or the guy that was watching from a distance or something to that degree? It was something like that. I can't remember, but it was something like that. I did know that. It's funny. Richard follows up with £2 and says, Juan always goes OTT at the end of his movies. OTT. I don't know what OTT means. I'm not hip. I'm not in it. I don't know what OTT means. But yes, Juan does bring his movies to a this is probably what you mean. He brings his movies to to a entertaining climax. But what I appreciate about the horror movies I've seen him direct, at least the first Conjuring, the first Insidious, there's that slow burn. There's a mystery. There's a real build there. I really appreciate that a lot. Let me see. What do we got? 90 minutes already. We're up to 90 minutes. All right. What time is it? 3:02. 3:02 in the afternoon. Tabitha says, I used to be a great cashier. That was decades ago. Yeah, well, I think way back in the day, in college, I worked at a movie theater. I worked at McDonald's. Way back in the day, I worked at a video store. And you do get regular customers. I mean, you do see the regulars that come in. But because, yeah, it's funny, you really have to be on it a lot, because the cashiers, they see, like, as soon as you leave, they're on to the next person, and unless they know you or you're in there like every day, they're not going to remember the conversation they had with you 5 months ago, or they're not going to remember that. I can remember that. They've had 50,000 conversations with so many people since then. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. I used to have that when people would come into the video store. I was in here last week. I'm like, I don't remember. I was talking to you. I'm like, well, I don't remember you. Like I've talked to 500 other people just in the last hour. You know what I mean? It's not Aiden, says Dave. To clarify, Donald Pleasance whispered in Don Shank's ear while they filmed the scene where he beats him with the plank. I get it now. I abused you as a child. Oh, that's what he whispered? Do you hear him say that, or is that something that was off? I get it now. I abused you as a child. Where's this information coming from? I haven't heard this. Donald Pleasance whispered in Don Shank's ear while they filmed the scene. So I guess maybe it's in the Taking Shape book or something like that. I'm not sure. Did that make it into the movie? Was that cut from the scene? Is that still there, but we just can't hear him say it? Is it there and he does say it and it's just gone over my head? I'm not sure. But that doesn't make any sense. I abused you as a child. That's just so lame. And that could mean 500 things. It could mean 500 things. Oh, over the top. Oh, OTT means over the top. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm not hip. I'm not hip to those acronyms. Over the top. I don't think he goes over the top. I wouldn't say that. It might feel over the top in relation to how he's been through the rest of the movie. And I guess I could see it from that perspective. I could see it feeling like over the top, but I've always looked at it, although there's some things that I think maybe he could reel in. I can certainly understand why you would think that. He's just now delivering on the climax. But because everything's been such a slow burn up to that point, I guess it feels justified, and I would much rather watch that kind of thing happen than watch a movie that peaks in the first 20 minutes and then there's nowhere else to go, which we see a lot too. I appreciate Wan as a horror director. And I think he did Malignant. He's doing Aquaman, of course, or he's just completed Aquaman. I think he's got something else coming. Mason James sends in $10, says, would Halloween have been better if Michael just ended up in different cities every year and Laurie was just one of many babysitters he stalked in other cities? Let's say that's interesting. That's interesting. Would Halloween have been better? Well, maybe as a franchise, perhaps, although I don't know. You know, it might have just turned into kind of like a quasi Friday the 13th. One of the things that Halloween had, although I guess they're kind of all over the place, even with Elm Street and Friday. It's always nice to have a character in a movie that the audience can relate to, that you get emotionally attached to. And it is kind of nice when they return, because then we become that character as the audience and we are following their journey. However, having said that, that doesn't mean that you can't do that with different characters in different movies. So every movie has a character that we become emotionally attached to, but that also means you have to start from scratch. So as a writer, that means you have to build this character up to be, likable, relatable, so the audience can root for that character, whoever that is. And it doesn't mean you don't do that or you can't do that. You certainly can. But one of the pros of doing that in the first movie and then having that one character, kind of follow into a sequel or multiple sequels is you don't have to start from scratch anymore. The character itself, your heroine, your lead, your final girl, whoever that is, already has a built-in fan base themselves. They already have people that are rooting for them. They already have a connection. There's a connective tissue there. There's a familiarity there. So then you can just focus on sort of the circumstances that surround that character. But you don't need to start from scratch into making sure the audience likes the character again. And that was one of the things they did with Friday the 13th. It's too bad that Ginny didn't carry over, because with every Friday the 13th film, we're always getting attached to somebody new, and Elm Street was kind of like that too, although Nancy did come back in 3. But when you watch 1 and you watch 2 and then you watch 3, when Nancy first appears on screen and she says, I think she says, never sleep again or something, and she's standing there in the doorway, as an audience, there's probably that moment, that feeling you have where you're like, oh, there she is, right? Because there's that connection, there's that emotional connection to the audience from the first movie, the history that's been there. You as an audience member have been through what she's been through because you've watched it. I mean, vicariously, but you've watched it, right? You've been through that journey together. So you see her on screen and you're like, yeah, there she is. You know what I mean? So whenever you can have that character that bleeds over, as long as the movies are good, it is kind of nice to have that. But to your point, would it have been better for the franchise if he had just gone to different towns? Perhaps, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. It depends what the stories are. And depends on how they justify Michael not being caught and how many years is it between. Is it just every Halloween? Yeah, maybe. It's an interesting thought. Techno Dopamine sends another $5. Thank you, Techno, I should say. You've been very generous today. Says, is there a way I could get an autographed shirt by you? An autographed shirt by me? I don't have any shirts, so no, I don't think so. If you DM me on Facebook, Many Things Dave McRae. Again, my link to that Facebook page is in the description. DM me there, and I might have a photo maybe or something lying around. It's funny. I have been asked that before, which is why I might have like a photo lying around. I might be able to do that for you. A shirt though, I don't have Dave McRae t-shirts, so I don't know how that would work. But DM me and we'll chat. Movie Chat and More Part 2 sends in £2. Says, do you think Jeff Goldblum is underrated? I don't think so. I think he's appropriately rated. Yes. Yes. I think he's appropriately rated. I don't think he's underrated. The Classically Deceased sends in $5. Says, hey, Dave, if you could go to any film set back then, whether it's the 70s or the 80s, and be a part of the crew, what film would you choose and why? Oh, dude, that's such a great question. I'm going to say, there's so many. I think Jaws would be really cool. Obviously, my favorite director, Steven Spielberg. Jaws would be really cool. Halloween obviously would be cool. Black Christmas would be. There's so many, dude. There's so many. The Shining, watching Kubrick work. Oh, man. The Exorcist. Oh. The first Elm Street would be cool. Anything, like any of those that are now legendary films. I mean, Poltergeist, E.T., Back to the Future. I mean, any of those things would be so cool to be a part of. But I think to go to the set of Jaws and see a relatively unknown director, and he was, he did the Sugarland Express. Yes, he did Duel, but this was he was 7, 8, and the future, because Spielberg is who he is and how he changed the way movies were made, the way movies were marketed. He changed the industry forever. I think younger people today don't realize, like, he's essentially the Elvis Presley of movies. It doesn't mean there weren't movies before him. It doesn't mean there weren't really good movies before him. But the kind of movies that existed before Spielberg came along did not exist. Not in those ways, not in the same way. The industry had changed. The studios had changed. How movies were marketed were beginning to change. And there's movies before Spielberg and there's movies after Spielberg. And so I think being on the set of Jaws and seeing this 27-year-old director navigate his way through this hellish production, and just watching the future icon work in his infancy, in his infancy, but in his beginnings, would be really cool. That would be cool. Lou sends in $1.99. Thank you, Lou. Says, happy Sunday, Dave. May I get a but Dave, please? But Lou, But Dave, there you go, Lou, my man. There you go. There you go. It's so funny. It's so funny. I love when people ask me that. It's so funny. Movie Chat and More Part 2 says, what the fuck happened to Carl Weathers? He is definitely underrated. Well, he was never a leading man. He was always a character actor. You know, obviously Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies and in Predator but I never saw him as a leading man. Was he in the movie Action Jackson? Was that Carl Weathers? Action Jackson? I'll never forget that. Action Jackson, 1988. Is that Carl Weathers? It was Carl Weathers. It was Action Jackson. Fuck, I remember that. I remember the ads for that. And Bill Duke is in that too. Greg T. Nelson. Fuck. Thomas F. Wilson. Biff from Back to the Future. I got to watch that again. Action Jackson. I think this was sort of him trying to, start a leading man career, perhaps. And he's been a ton of stuff. I mean, he's not just known for, he's been in a lot of things as a character actor but I think he's primarily known for that. So I don't know. I mean, listen, as actors get older, how old is he now? 70 something? As they get older, they get less, they're less in demand. I think he's appropriate. I think he's appropriately, he's still working, Mandalorian. He's still out there. He's still working. I've never ever thought whatever happened to Carl Weathers. Whatever happened to Carl Weathers anyway? You guys remember Carl Weathers? I've never thought about that, but interesting. Lazy Sunday Q&A. Evil Alex says George Lucas was big too. Star Wars inspired everything after. 100%. Oh, absolutely. 100%. George Lucas is a legend. The thing with George Lucas, though, is George Lucas really only has Star Wars. Now, he has Indiana Jones, of course, as well. That was his idea. But George Lucas is more of more about technology. There's a lot of things. I even think Lucas had a hand in Photoshop, if I'm not mistaken. But Lucas was always, he's a visionary. He's a creator in that sense. And so, but yes, the story of Star Wars and, which, as I always like to, roast people who complain about Avatar not being original. I'm like, and neither was Star Wars, but anyway, neither was Indiana Jones. But Star Wars that kind of story had never been told in that kind of way before. So, yes, it's original in that respect. But yes, he's a legend. He's one of the great filmmakers and visionaries of our time. Not as a director, though. Not as a director. George Lucas, I don't think, is a great director. I think he's a great visionary and a great ideas man and a great storyteller, perhaps, and what he wants. But yes, he gave us Star Wars, and the technology that catapulted Star Wars into the stratosphere, no pun intended there, is what it changed the game. It changed the industry. In terms of the technology, ILM was created specifically for Star Wars, a bunch of hippie dudes in their garages trying to get fucking shots together. And now it's one of the great, most legendary special effects company in the history of cinema. 100%. He's 100%. But when it comes to a director and it comes to somebody who has changed pop culture in its zeitgeist, Spielberg is a synonym for Hollywood, because it's not just the movies he directed, it's the movies he helped spearhead to bring to life. So again, you look at Jaws, right? The first movie to make $100 million at the box office. The first movie to really become a blockbuster and start that trend. 2 years later, Star Wars defeats Jaws at the box office, the highest grossing movie in motion picture history. George Lucas, wow, Star Wars, amazing, right? The effects, amazing, absolutely amazing. And that same year, Spielberg had Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Huge hit. Then he does 1941, bit of a down. But then he comes back with Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981. He comes back with E.T. in 1982. He comes back with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 84, The Color Purple in 85. He's got Empire of the Sun. You know, he's got Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and then Jurassic Park and Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan and all these movies that he's, you know, that are becoming, it's incredible. But look at the movies he's produced and helped spearhead and bring to life. Poltergeist, Gremlins, the Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Goonies. I mean, excuse me, you know? And Spielberg in the 80s was one of those guys that was, like I said, I mean, we're talking about pop culture, right? We're talking about pop culture zeitgeist, the way films were marketed and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Those blockbuster kind of films. And E.T., of course, overtook the Crown as the highest grossing film of all time. And then he does it again with Jurassic Park. But at the end of the day, yes, you are correct. Lucas, he's up there. Scorsese's up there. But when it comes to pure blockbuster, pure entertainment, pure 80s, pure, like, the industry changed at that time. What a blockbuster was, if you could even call it that, before Spielberg was not what it was after, as what it became through the late 70s into the 80s with all these films, these classic films that he didn't just direct, but he also produced and wrote. I mean, he wrote the story for Poltergeist. And depending on who you ask, maybe even directed a little bit of it. So yes, I always say that because no director in this new era that we've been in the last has been more influential. No filmmaker has been more influential on the filmmakers that have come next than Steven Spielberg. You know, he changed the game. He changed the game. Lucas too. But Lucas didn't, I mean, he directed Star Wars and then he didn't direct again until 22 years later. So, you know, from a directing standpoint, Lucas, no. From a directing standpoint, Spielberg, yes. And a producer as well. Because Lucas, he directed the first Star Wars, obviously produced the next two, produced the Indiana Jones films. But he was very heavily into other stuff at that time, like Howard the Duck. But hey, everybody's got their downfalls, like 1941. I actually like Howard the Duck. But yeah, dude, I mean, please. Lucas is legendary. He's up there. He is, it would be him, Spielberg, Scorsese, maybe Coppola, that you would have on a Mount Rushmore of the Hollywood director movie brats of the 70s that changed the game. But Spielberg is way in the lead. It's just because of his influence. It's the influence of the man. I mean, younger people today don't realize that because if you were born in the late 90s or early 2000s, by the time you get to this day, there's other people, right? You know, but I mean, James Cameron was influenced by Spielberg, you know. It's insane. It's insane. That's why, to me, he's the greatest director in the history of cinema from that perspective. I'm not saying from an auteur perspective or he makes the best movies all the time. I'm not saying that. But in terms of influence and impact, I don't think there's been anybody else like him in that regard. Carl Weathers, Dennis Williams sends in $4.99 but retracted, and then sends in $4.99 and says, how are you preparing for your role as Freddie, and what elements of Freddie are you hoping to capture while still making it your own? I'm excited. I'm not really doing too much at the moment. Like I said last stream, when I was asked a similar question, I made it very clear that I don't want to overthink the role. I know what I'm capable of. I know myself as a performer, what I'm capable of and what I'm going to bring. Obviously, I have to work with Cecil to make sure that it aligns with his vision. But I'm hoping to bring a darker, scarier Freddie. That's, yeah, I guess maybe a darker, scarier Freddie to the role. And yeah, I'm not doing really anything. I mean, I know the character so well. I don't feel like I have to sit and watch, tape of Freddie for hours on end and all that kind of stuff. This is a character I've been, a fan of for, most of my life. For 35 years. So I know the character pretty well. I know the nuances and idiosyncrasies. That's, the certain characteristics of the character very well. But like I said last stream, do not interpret me having fun and goofing around in a quasi Freddie voice on this channel as what you're going to get in the role. That's just me messing around. That's just me having fun. When it comes time to shoot the movie, that's a different ballgame. So yeah, just to make sure that I bring the essence of the character there, really, at the end of the day. Kevin L sends in $4.99, says, in Halloween 78, what did Laurie mean when she said, well, kiddo, I thought you outgrew superstition? That's a very good question. I've always interpreted it as that she's looking at the trick-or-treaters and she's seeing, I don't know for sure, but I've always interpreted as that she just saw, like a few minutes prior, she just saw Michael standing by the bush and it really freaked her out. And she's like, I don't know, And then she sees the innocence of Halloween, right? Shortly after, she sees what Halloween is really all about. The innocence, trick or treat, kids. And she smiles and she smirks. And it's kind of like, it's almost like she's reaffirming to herself, there's nothing to be afraid of. You know what I mean? And she's kind of laughing and thinking, I thought I outgrew that shit. I thought I outgrew that. That's what I've always interpreted as, but I might be wrong on that. Maybe there may be a real specific reason she says that maybe is more related to what she's looking at and only what she's looking at. But I've always seen it as that she got really freaked out by Michael by the bush, which is causing some, it's Halloween, guy in a mask. And then she sees these innocent kids and she kind of just laughs, kind of think, I got nothing to worry about. You know what I mean? It's Halloween, whatever, right? That's kind of how I always interpret it, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I could be wrong. But that's how I've always seen it. Jordan Christie sends in $4.99 and says, with money always being a motivator and the resurgence of the Halloween buzz, do you think we will ever get another John Carpenter directed Halloween? Probably not. I think it's entirely possible that you may get another horror movie directed by John Carpenter. If it was smaller, and I mean by smaller, I mean in terms of the logistics. So it's not a movie that's, got a ton of shooting locations where John has to get up and move all over the place. Something like, in It's Me, Billy, or like a Hush, that movie, something that is primarily one location, but it's really good. It's all about suspense and mood and stuff. If somebody could come up with a story idea like that and pitch it to, I think he might come back. I think he might. And it's pitched to him like, John, let's not have The Ward be your swan song. Let's have, let's make a movie, suspense, atmosphere, mood. Let's do this. It's one location or two locations tops. We're going to shoot this thing in like 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you think? You got $5 million to play with. It's about this. It's about this couple that is at this house, or and then something weird happens. Whatever it is. It's not necessarily a story we haven't seen before, but it's really good. You know what I mean? It's really good. It's an isolation kind of horror movie or something that might entice him. The way John is now, I I'm under the impression that if it's anything too complicated, if it's anything too demanding, if it's like, a 3-month shoot with multiple locations, I don't know. I mean, unless the script and the story just really resonates with him and he's just like, this is fucking amazing. Maybe. But I've always seen it as if you really want to get him back, he just strikes me as somebody that, and I love John Carpenter, I do, but he strikes me as somebody that's just, he's done, man. He's been there, done that, has the t-shirt, and he just doesn't want to lift. He'd just rather be sitting playing his Xbox and watching basketball. He's literally said that. So it's got to be something that is not going to be that demanding, or it's not going to be appealing to him. He's likely going to want to just like be done for the day and go play fucking Xbox in his trailer or something. I mean, it's got to be really, you know what I mean? Maybe you get Kurt Russell back, right? Maybe it's about this old guy who lives in this cabin and weird shit begins to happen or something, and Kurt Russell's the old guy. I mean, Kurt Russell and John have a great relationship. Maybe that entices him to come back, right? Oh, hey, Kurt Russell's attached, John. Come on, man, swan song, let's do it. And he's like, all right, let's fucking do it. I mean, maybe, right? I don't know. But I think it's going to take something like that. A Halloween movie? I don't think so. But you never know. You never know, man. AK Channel TV sends in $4.99, says, will the threat of a Friday the 13th make the Halloween franchise feel the need to keep making movies? Also, bulk up for Freddie. I want to see a 250-pound Freddie. 250-pound Freddie? Dude, I'd have to gain like 100 pounds. That's not going to happen. Can you imagine? A gigantic Freddie. No, where I am right, I know you're just, fucking around. Where I am right now in my weight is I'm 155, I think. So, which is good because I'm only 5'8". So that actually is going to look good for Freddie. Because Freddie was never, a big guy anyway, right? So 250-pound Freddie. Can you imagine? And me, 5'8", 250 pounds. Can you imagine? Man. Just jacked. I'm jacked. My arms are like 22 inches. I'm jacked. Oh, that'd be funny. JM24 sends in $9.99, says, hey, Dave, in your opinion, and thank you very much for the super chat. In your opinion, do you feel like the new Halloween movies will hold up in the timeline, or do you think it will get swept under the rug after ends? That's a very good question. As of right now, no, I don't, because I think they're competently made movies, even though I didn't like Halloween Kills, and I thought it was not nearly, I didn't think it was as good as 18, and I'm not really a fan of 18 either. But they're competently made. The production value's there. There's redeeming qualities. I think they're good. They're good modern slasher movies. They have the polish. They have the sheen to them. So I think they have a lot of rewatch value for those who really like them. I don't think it's going to be a situation where it gets swept under the rug. I think there's a lot of fans out there, especially those that are maybe a bit younger than myself, who actually consider this the timeline. For me, it's Halloween 2, right? But for a lot of people, it's Halloween 18 and Kills. I mean, and that's not to say that there aren't people my age and older that don't feel that way too. There could be, but I've noticed that you're seeing that a lot now. No, Halloween 18. So that's and I think it's because it's got that modern production value. It's got that modern sheen and that shine. And so, it's more digestible to watch than old school 1981 Halloween 2, especially if you're a younger person today, right? If you're 25 or something, watching Halloween 2 must be like me in the 90s watching a film from the 40s or something. I mean, so I completely understand. But I think because they're competently made in the sense of their production value and all that kind of stuff, I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, I think there's a lot of issues with Kills in terms of structure and story, and I think there's shit that just doesn't work. But I think Halloween Ends will have to be an absolute colossal failure in order for the whole trilogy to be swept under the rug. I don't think so. I don't think it will be. I think it will be I think this new trilogy will kind of rest in people's minds in the Halloween community like Halloween 4 does, or Halloween 6 does or something, I think it's just going to, like, overall, generally speaking, I think it will, when people do their rankings, I think you'll see Halloween 18 and Kills and Ends, in the middle. I don't think you're necessarily, like, generally, I don't think you're going to see it at the top. I don't think you're going to see them at the bottom. I think you're going to see them kind of in the middle. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel. But you never know, I guess. You never know. All right, 2 hours. We are at 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen. I've been going 2 hours. Man, it doesn't feel like I've been going 2 hours. Holy snapping crap. It doesn't really feel like it. All right, I do have to get going because I have to attend to a wedding very soon. So, all right, I'll take one more here. Let me see here. Darren in Georgetown says, do you feel if you were more prolific in your film output, it would improve your odds of being a director for a company? Well, if you mean, yeah, of course, right? So, like I've always said, I've spent, 21 years now in the entertainment industry. And most of that very early on was on camera acting. I did a few commercials. I did a few docudramas. But then I fell and moved into the voiceover side of things. And that's where I've been ever since. And I've had really great success in voiceover. But I went to film school. I don't know if a lot of people know that. In the late 90s, I actually went to film school. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to direct. I wanted to make movies and all that kind of stuff. But I never, because of where my career went, I never fell into it. So, It's Me, Billy, a couple of years ago was my first, like, really, I wanted to, I had just turned 40. I wanted to really start putting myself out there as a filmmaker, as a director. And so that's why, yes, It's Me, Billy was made because I wanted to deliver something to Black Christmas fans, because Black Christmas fans felt they got the raw end of the deal with the two remakes. But I also made it for my portfolio as well, to use it as a calling card. So yes, I think if I had spent my career as a filmmaker rather than a voice actor, who knows where I'd be right now. I mean, I don't know. I could have several movies on Prime right now. I have no idea. But I think that goes for anybody. Yes, for sure. I think if I had more experience and I had more movies under my belt, I just have one at the moment, then I think you never know. You never know, right? Fingers crossed. But that's one of the goals. I mean, I'm 43 now. So one of the goals for myself and for Bruce is to start making more, real movies. So that's what we plan on doing, because Bruce as well has spent 20 years in the entertainment industry, but he's on the corporate side. He works for William F. White International in Toronto, which of course is Canada's one of their biggest distributors of lighting and grip gear and cameras for the Hollywood films. Well, for anybody really, but they do supply the gear for a lot of the Hollywood films that come up to Toronto and across the country. And he's the national manager of education and training. And so he's been doing that for years, and he's got real great experience on that side and the camera side and all the equipment and all that stuff. I've learned a shitload from him, but he wants to make movies too. So that's why we band together, being best friends of 30 years, and we made It's Me, Billy. And so the two of us want to make more movies together and put our names out there and see where it goes. Yeah. But when you're not backed by a studio, or you have not been hired by a production company or sought out, yes, it is always hard to raise funds. And that really is the great thing about being an independent filmmaker, is obviously you have a lot of creative control on the projects that you want to produce and get done, but you also don't have the money. So the great thing about being sort of maybe a more prolific director who's just hired by the big studios is, well, depending on your seniority too, you don't have to worry about money, but you might not have the creative control that you want. So sometimes it's a catch-22, right? Depending on where you land. But yeah, for sure. If I had more films under my belt and they were really good, then who knows where I'd be. But that's the goal, right? That's the plan. And we should have an announcement on something coming. Like I said earlier this month, we're just waiting until the month of August is over, and we'll see where we are. We'll see where we are. All right, last one. Kenneth Holmes here says, thanks for the super chat. Says, with not getting too personal, does the voice acting ever slow down for you? And is there anything else you go to back up besides YouTube? Well, the voiceover, no, I don't mind answering it. When you get to a certain, look, voiceover is acting, right? It's contract work. You are only paid when you do the work, right? So does voiceover slow down? Like any actor will tell you, there's moments where work can slow down for you, for sure. But when you get to a certain level in your career, generally what happens is even the slow times, you're still working, right? So for me, like I said, I've been doing this for 21 years. I've done very well for myself, and I've been able to, let's just say that, I mean, if work were to suddenly stop, I wouldn't be in desperate need. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't, oh my God, I got to go get a job, and that's not to knock the people that have to do that, right? You got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. Fucking rock on, man. Like, you got to do what you got to do. But I'm very fortunate that I've been doing this for a long time, that I've been able to build up my career and to a point where even when things are slow, I'm still being hired for work, right? YouTube's just a hobby. It really is. I don't make as much as you think I do or you might assume I do from YouTube. You got to be fucking Joe Rogan to or somebody that's getting 50 or 60,000 views a video, or have sponsors, or, whatever the case is, right? There's some money that comes in from YouTube, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot to survive on. Let's just put it that way. As much as I appreciate it, of course, because it helps keep the channel going, right? Helps pay for, the software, and it helps pay for the movies I have to rent when I do, the two dudes. I put all that shit into all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So microphone, music, all that kind of jazz. Any sort of monthly sort of fees I got to pay for live shit and all that stuff. Oh yeah. But yeah, I would say that I'm very thankful that I'm in a position where when things get slow, and it always gets slow for every actor, depending on the time of year or what's happening, I'm in a position where I'm at least still working. You know what I mean? That's important. That's important. But hey, you got to do what you got to do, man. You got to do what you got to do. And I support it 100% because I've been there. Look, when I first started out, I was working at a video store and pursuing voiceover, right? And then there came a point in 2006 when I was able to leave my job and pursue voiceover full time. And I've been full time now since 2006. So what's that? 17 years? 16 years? I'm very lucky. Very lucky. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Let me see. Was that it? I think that was it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I got all the super chats. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me because I got to get ready for a wedding. Not Bruce's wedding. This is another wedding. Bruce's wedding is not till next Saturday. But I want to thank my great moderators, of course, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, and Chris Baber. Thank you for doing what you guys do. Thank you to all the super chat questions that came in today. And of course, some of those non-super chat ones as well. Thank you for just watching. Thank you for hanging out with me here on this lazy Sunday and just watching and hanging out. Don't forget, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's episode 163, I think now, of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Tony and I are continuing our paranormal series, but this time we're watching some Bigfoot videos. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It is our goal. Tony and I will absolutely come to the conclusion tomorrow night on whether Bigfoot is real or not. I am saying this with a gigantic wink, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not come at me. Bigfoot's fucking it's going to happen. It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be fun because you know how there's some people out there that fake these. And we'll be looking at the most famous of them all, of course, the Patterson video as well, which we'll look at. You know, we just like to change things up. We just like to change things up, you know? We're just having fun. We're just having fun. Don't forget, tomorrow night, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, everybody. You know I love you guys. You guys are amazing. I wouldn't be here chatting with you and yapping away and if you guys weren't here. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and I sincerely mean that. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will talk to you soon. Alrighty. Cheers.